Amidst all of the drama, there are still reasons for us to be optimistic. I'll get into that and more on the 13th episode of the Down South Bills podcast. I am your host, Devin Long, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy my content. All right, let's talk about what we just heard today. Because I don't think a lot of Bills fans walked away from that press conference feeling reassured. If anything, we feel a lot more uneasy than before. Terry Pegula spoke, Brandon Beane spoke, and whether they meant to or not, they told us a lot about how they actually view this team, this roster, and the fan base. So my reaction to Pegula and the Brandon Beane press conference, Terry Pegula's tone just really bothered me for most of the press conference. He came off a little bit as egotistical, quick to blame Sean McDermott and the coaching staff, and he spoke confidently for someone who clearly just doesn't understand how football works completely. Like, and I kind of want to give Terry Pegula a slight pass, just a slight pass because he does have a little bit of family issues going on right now. I don't want to get into that, but yeah, I know Terry Pegula was just frustrated about the situation, and I know he ultimately wants what we all want, which is a Buffalo Bills championship. And he was saying that Josh Allen didn't know about the firing, which I don't think that's necessarily the best thing because Josh Allen probably loved McDermott, probably didn't want him gone. But as I said before, I don't think firing Sean McDermott was all that terrible. I just thought that in that moment, like Sean McDermott should have been the one that stayed, and Brandon Beane should have been the one that gone, or at least them together. Because Sean McDermott, he's not like inexcusable, and he's not like not at fault at all for us not ultimately getting over the hump. I just thought that Brandon Beane should have been held accountable too and definitely not promoted. But looking at the way that Terry Pegula spoke today, I'm kind of glad that Brandon Beane is in the room to help him pick the next head coach. Because Terry Pegula picking the next head coach for me, that would terrify me a little bit. I know he picked Sean McDermott, but that was probably a lucky pick. And so he said that his reason for firing Sean McDermott was the tears in the locker room. Said that he went up to Josh Allen and said something along the lines of that was a catch, and Josh Allen was just crying and didn't even acknowledge him. And he said he looked around the locker room and just said, "Hey, we need a change." And I mean, I can understand that. I just can't really understand the Bean part. But as I said, I do kind of like being in the room to help him pick the next coach, and that kind of gives me a little bit of optimism along the lines of optimism. And so I keep pointing back to roster construction, which Terry Pegula said he felt like we hit a playoff wall. I'm one of the people who say we may have hit that playoff wall because of the roster construction, but Bean, he was taking some responsibility, but he was also saying things along the lines of, hey, Sean McDermott wants to run a certain type of scheme, so we draft players to fit that scheme. And then Pegula chimed in about Keon Coleman, said that Keon Coleman was a coach's pick. And not McDermott, Beam kind of walked that back later and said, hey, that was my pick. I ultimately make the decision, and now it's stuff coming out where Bean is talking and saying Keon Coleman ran a 4.57 or whatever he ran, and that's good because now we can draft him. And there's not any coaches around. Those are front office guys at the combine saying that about Keon Coleman. So not really sure how all that was taking place as far as picking the players, but I do feel like Sean McDermott had some say in the type of players that were being chosen, whether that was for the good or for the bad of the organization. And Pegula was using seeding to justify the roster quality, which I don't understand because obviously even if the roster was flawed, I feel like a coach could be able to coach the roster to a certain seeding. I don't think seeding is necessarily all dependent on just the roster quality and the players. Like I don't think I think Josh Allen can give you 10 wins. I truly believe that. So I don't think that's a truly sound logic anyway. But bottom line on the presser, most fans don't feel encouraged, and I think that's a problem. I think there was a lot more questions that we didn't get answered. I feel like some people did ask Brandon Beane about the wide receiver room and does he regret some of those things, and he kind of said that, hey, I felt like the wide receiver group couldn't defend themselves. I felt like they were getting picked on, which that's kind of convenient. I mean, I don't think he really addressed like if he could have got certain players or how he's gonna address the wide receiver room going forward. I think he just continued to kind of say stuff along the lines of you pay Josh Allen $55 million a year and whatever, and it's hard to kind of build around a franchise. And I think that's just around the league. There's teams who have good quarterbacks and have weapons and who have won Super Bowls. So I don't really believe that either. That just because we have Josh Allen, we can't have good skill players. I don't necessarily believe that. And so at this point, this is 100% Brandon Beane's team. There's no more hiding. There's no more shared blame. Beane admitted that players were being picked to fit specific schemes. And so the new coach coming in is going to be a Brandon Beane coach. And so if he's picking players to fit that scheme, he believes in that coach's scheme. So if that coach says, give me these type players to fit this scheme, then that's all still on Brandon Beane. And that matters for me. That means that he's being held accountable and that, hey, his leash is short, whether that's for good or bad, and we have to go through Terry Pegula hiring a coach on his own. I mean, hiring a coach and a GM on his own, because Brandon Beane is going to be on a short leash because Terry Pegula is telling us, hey, I'm giving the reins right now to Brandon Beane, and he's telling us loud and clear that he believes in Brandon Beane putting together a team that can win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, we'll see. And for me, this offseason has to include a splash. It has to include a free agency splash, a trade splash, whatever it may be, whether it's George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, whatever it may be, whether it's on the defensive side and trading down all the way to the lottery to get a defensive player, offensive player, whatever it may be. There has to be a splash, maybe multiple splashes. I don't want to hear about the cap space. I don't want to hear about the Bills having to I don't want to hear about any of that. I think we can trade some of the older players. I mean, I'm even to the mindset of we can trade, Deion Dawkins. I love Deion Dawkins. He's great for Buffalo's community, one of the pillars of our team. But Deion Dawkins is 33, 34 years old. I think some of these older players we can get younger in the draft. Hopefully, get a better developer of men as far as the coach is concerned. But I mean, I think this team really has to get younger and get some star players, whether that means we have to have some young players that develop in certain positions. We need certain players. We need certain positions that have star players, and I think that's receiver and defensive line. And that's just where I am with it talent wise. I think the talent has to rise regardless of who the coach is. And that's just me. And this is the moment where Beane either proves he's elite or confirms the fans' worst fears and possibly messes up another year or two of Josh Allen's career. And that's that. And with that being said, we obviously have to talk about head coaching candidates, because now we're looking for a head coach. And I'm not going to rank these guys. I'm just going to kind of get into the names that were leaked today. And so Lou Anarumo was leaked, respected creative defensive coordinator, but for me, feels too close to Sean McDermott. If you're shaking things up, I think you should actually shake things up. Brian Daboll, I like this one. He knows Josh. He's from Buffalo. He knows Buffalo. And I think the Giants situation was bad. I see some people saying that he was kicked out of New York in the middle of the season. And I just don't think that's fair. I think he was descendant of Bill Belichick, a different side of the ball, but worked under Bill Belichick, worked under Sean McDermott, worked with Josh Allen. And I think the Giants situation, I think a plethora of coaches would not succeed in that spot, especially as first time head coaches. I know he got the coach of the year, and I think he worked very hard for that. But I think that just wasn't a great situation, and I think he can elevate this team, especially this offense, especially running because I think one thing that we failed to point out is that a lot of our coordinators have left over the years, and I don't know whose fault that is. I mean, it was said that Leslie Frazier fell out with Sean McDermott about the defense. It was said that Brian Daboll kind of fell out with Sean McDermott. So I don't know how true any of that is, but I think that Sean McDermott may have had some say over the things that were done on defense, maybe some say over the things that were done on the offense, and definitely some things that were said over the roster. I'm not excusing Brandon Beane. I'm not excusing any other coordinators. I'm just saying the things that were said, and so you guys can stay informed, which is what I'm trying to do here. So Brian Daboll, I like that one. Joe Brady, offensive continuity, reduce turnovers with Josh Allen. I think he ultimately, like everyone else, I think he needs more weapons. Everyone says that Joe Brady loves bubble screens. I think Joe Brady was forced to throw bubble screens. I think when everybody eats, even with Stephon Diggs late before he left, I think everybody eats was a good mantra when you have guys of Stephon Diggs caliber and things of that nature. I think when you just try to do everybody eats and everybody's mediocre and then I think it's a little bit harder to do. So I think everybody eats is still a good mantra. I think I get the appeal to have Joe Brady here. Joe Brady's having head coaching opportunities. I think it's a very, very high possibility that he is a head coach next year, whether that's the Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, or wherever. So I do think taking a swing at somebody who's already in the building and who's already been interviewed today, actually as well, after the press conference, I think that's a decent choice as well. Anthony Lynn, good leader, good running back mind, but not my favorite head coaching option. Feels safe, but doesn't feel bold at all. And I think if we're firing Sean McDermott and they're saying that they're going to take their time and find the right guy, I think that you shouldn't take a safe pick. I think you should do something bold and find somebody who's really going to take you over the top, or that you think is going to take you over the top. Grant Yadinsky, one of my favorites, young offensive-minded guy, kind of has the McVay-style trajectory, would be a real psychological shift. But I think that's something that would really spice up the team and be good for the team. He's in Jacksonville right now. And so I think that would be something that would be really interesting for the Buffalo Bills. Next up is Anthony Weaver, but excuse me. Anthony Weaver kind of gives me Sean McDermott vibes as well. But another thing about Anthony Weaver is he also, as well as giving me Sean McDermott vibes, he gives me D'Amico Ryans vibes, if that makes sense. And so I'm a little bit torn here. I think it's 50-50 for me. But personally, I still lean towards the offensive side of the ball with Josh Allen, because ultimately, if you get a defensive-minded head coach and you get offensive coordinators, then the offensive coordinator is either going to be fired because he's too good, or he's going to get a head coaching job because he's too good, or he's going to get fired because he's not good enough. So I think staying offensive head coach and getting Josh Allen in the same offense for the rest of his career is probably the way to go here. Other names that I like that weren't interviewed yet: Clint Kubiak, Davis Webb, and Nate Shieldhouse. These people are all still in the playoffs, so we can interview these guys virtually. I think it's after they play or something like that. If they still continue on, if they're out of the playoffs, we can obviously interview them in person. But the people who make the Super Bowl, you can interview them virtually, but you can't interview them in person until like a week or so after the Super Bowl. So like, say Clint Kubiak, he's probably I think they're going to be in the Super Bowl, just personally. I think the Seahawks are going to be in the Super Bowl. So somebody like Clint Kubiak, we couldn't interview for like a month or something like that, which I think may not be the way to go. Davis Webb, the Broncos, if they make the Super Bowl, I think we maybe should pass on him as well. And same with Nate. If the Rams make the Super Bowl, maybe we should pass on him. I just don't think we should wait that long. They could. I could be completely wrong. They could kind of agree inside of their minds and not state it, I guess, aloud to Adam Schefter or somebody, and then kind of have thoughts of who the offensive coordinators will be. It's just, if you wait longer than everybody else is filling those positions and maybe getting some of the guys that you want in those coordinator spots and things of that nature. So we'll see as far as those extra names. Excited with some of the names that they do already have interviews with, but we'll monitor this closely and just keep talking about it and see where it goes. But I'm optimistic. I want to kind of leave you with that. I'm still optimistic. I still have faith in this team. We have Josh Allen. I feel like a lot of people are kind of hate watching the Bills and saying that life comes at you fast and things of that nature. And I just want you guys to remember that we do have Josh Allen. And I think Josh Allen guarantees you 9-10 wins. Whether you guys think that makes the playoffs or not, that's for you guys to decide. But I think once you get into the playoffs, you have a shot. And I think that's ultimately the thing. I think if we can find a better head coach once we get there, then we can definitely get to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen, especially with some better weapons on the outside and on the defensive line. So I'm not panicking. But I am paying attention. The Bills are at a defining moment. Josh Allen is still elite. The window is still open, but the margin for error, I mean, it's very slim if it's not gone. The next head coach in this offseason will tell us everything about whether this organization truly understands the moment that it's in. Because if you want me to go if you want me to go deeper on any of these coaching candidates, you guys let me know in the comments. Let me know the next topics that you guys may want me to speak on. And just thank you for making it to the end of the pod. If you enjoyed the content, as I said in the beginning, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And once again, go Bills.